I guess I'm a pretty funny guy. I'm quick. That's one thing I think that I learned from being a stand-up comic is that being able to respond really quickly to something somebody says. I mean, you can disarm a heckler in like 2 seconds, like come back with something. And like it's happened at weddings where I've had somebody who was had a few too many drinks and would say something like nasty to me while I'm trying to do pictures of the couple, and I would just fire back something that would like completely silence them and make everyone else laugh.
Well, hey everyone. Welcome to episode 441 of F-Stop, Collaborate, and Listen. Today I'm joined by longtime photographer Casey Fatchett, whose 25-year journey behind the lens is a powerful testament to what it means to create timeless images. In this conversation, Casey opens up about moving beyond trends, building authentic client connections, and how his introverted nature has actually become one of his greatest creative strengths. We also talk about how his background in acting and stand-up comedy shaped his approach, how he found his unique photographic voice, and what it really takes to make honest, enduring work in an industry obsessed with what's new. If you've ever wrestled with staying true to your vision in a noisy world, this episode is just for you. Before we dive in, I have a quick reminder. My Kickstarter campaign for The Colorado Way, my new book of essays and photographs, is live through October 5th. In addition to the book, you can help out by scoring prints, postcards, and lots more. And every backer helps bring this dream project to life. You can find the link in the show notes. Okay, here's my conversation with Casey Fatchett. All right, Casey Fatchett, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to have a great conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, we were pontificating our existential crisis that we're both experiencing as frequent travelers in airports, and how air traffic control is gone down the drain in the last couple of weeks.
I'm starting to try to get like a good juju bag, like make some offerings or something. Flying out of Newark, I live in northern New Jersey. I lived in New York City for over 20 years, and then I moved out to New Jersey, and now like Newark Airport's the closest airport, and I'm starting to, not want to fly. I'm thinking maybe I can drive 12, 13, 24 hours to wherever like I need to go now.
Like an airport that doesn't have a long-running history of disaster.
Yes. And it doesn't have a recent history of losing communication with planes.
It's all good. No big deal. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I got an email from the airline after we just landed on our return trip from Ireland that said, like, don't worry, we take plenty of other safety precautions other than radar. And I'm like, sure.
What the email should have said is, congratulations, you survived.
You made it. You don't have to. Your survivors don't have to sue us for anything.
Right. Well, Casey, for people who aren't familiar with you and your photography, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I have been a professional photographer for 25 years. I started off, or actually over 25 years. Started off in the late 90s as a generalist, and then I got more into weddings in the early aughts. I've done more than 800 weddings at this point. I've done thousands of portrait sessions. Those are my main things for my business. I also do a lot of corporate events. And like I said, I live in northern New Jersey with my wife, no kids, and we have a beautiful border collie named Shadow who keeps me very, very busy because she needs to have a job. So she's my photographer. She helps me. People want to like have her come to weddings with me, and they're like, "Oh, that'd be so much fun." I'm like, "No," because she would be literally be hurting everyone in the wedding. And I'm like, "Well, that might help with some rowdy groomsmen parties that I've had before." But we regularly hike when I'm going out, like doing like nature photography, stuff like that. She comes with me, and we go on hikes, and she alerts me if anything's coming our way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I used to have a border collie as well, so I completely understand what you're talking about. And I was thinking, for like teaching workshops, having a border collie like get people to like, hey, let's go. Like that could be actually very useful.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but I'm going to write that down in my idea book because if I just have like, guys, we need to move, and she naturally, because it's just in their DNA. When we used to go to the dog park when she was very young and socializing her, she would take dogs back to their owners. She just, or like kids, if people brought their kids and they were like somehow playing in the dog park, she would like go and like move their kid back to the parent. Like, yeah, I was like, okay, well, we don't know these people. We need to maybe not, just like nipping at them or anything, but she's just like nudging them with her
Like,
shoulder or
hey,
her
it's time to
butt.
go.
Come on, gotta go this way. Yeah,
That's cool.
photographers are, well, in some ways like children as well. So it's
Oh,
you get distracted.
yeah, no, it's a good problem. If you find something that you're so into that like you're oblivious to your surroundings, it's actually a really cool experience, and it can present issues if the rest of the group is like, "Hey, we gotta go."
Right. If there's one
Yeah,
person who's just sort of lagging behind, you get them to catch up.
yeah. So, Casey, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about how you first got into photography. What sparked your interest?
When I was a teenager, I wanted to. I started having a sort of like visual need, like it's just like to document things. My dad was a fire investigator, and he had cameras that he used for work, but he would also photograph our uh, family events and things like that. His like, and he would just be like kind of off the wall. This is back shooting film, and he would not look through the viewfinder, and he'd just be taking pictures and be like, "Oh yeah, hey," and shooting kind of wildly at times, and the reactions that got from us as a family were all very fun and natural, and like people are laughing and having a great time. So there was a part of me that was like, I want to document moments like that are very real, that aren't staged, and that was just something that I found I was drawn to. At the same time, my mother was a very crafty person, and she would take pictures for using in her crafts. Like she would make cards or other things, and she would take pictures of flowers and trees and things, and just like cut them up and or do different things with them, and use them
Huh.
as part of like multimedia kind of art and craft projects. So I was sort of drawn to it in that sense. And then when I graduated college, I went to school, a theater major and a journalism major. So both really, really, really useful degrees. And I moved to New York City to be an actor, and one of my side jobs was taking headshots for other actors and doing promo photos for musician friends and stuff. And it like started with people I knew, and then like started people would recommend me, and I sort of branched out from there. So I was mostly doing those sort of photos, and then my friends from college started getting married, and I'd go to the weddings. I'd take a couple rolls of film with me, and I'd shoot 2 rolls of film, blow up 1 or 2 photos that I thought were like really good, and I'd send them off to my friends as like an additional gift. And they started coming back to me and saying, these are better than the person we hired. And so there was this sort of, again, young and stupid. Had no idea. Like I didn't really know how to run a business, and I'd been doing it at that point for a little while. And I thought to myself, oh, I can do weddings. They're on the weekend. I'll know what my acting schedule is like, because you get cast in something, and then you kind of know how much time ahead of that you are going to be working on something. Or if I book a job and I have to be like working that job, like if I book a wedding, I have to be working that weekend. I won't take a job that I need to be, acting that weekend. Oh, this will all work out great. I had no idea what I was getting into, but I did my first wedding, and I fell in love with it because it's very emotional. It's one of those things that there's a lot of emotion, and some people think that that's stressful, and yeah, it can be stressful at times, but it is in a way like a performance. Like you kind of prepare yourself for it. There are basic things that are very similar in all weddings, and then you go into it, and there's no do-overs. You have to improvise your way out of anything that goes wrong, and it's exhilarating in that sense that you don't have any. So there's some performance aspect
Hmm.
there as well, which I think try to be, plus the emotional stuff. My wife refers to me as like having the most romantic job in the world, and she asked me what I like about doing weddings, and what I like about doing weddings is the people and the relationships,
Mm.
and getting to know the people that I work with, and so that I know on the day of the wedding, like what really means something to them.
Yes.
I know how, like, what moments, because I'm not a spray and pray kind of person. I am really looking for the photos, and I think one of the things that people have said about my work that is, I think, one of the better compliments is that they feel like they know the people in them.
Mm.
They feel it, and they feel like they are present in that moment, whatever is happening emotionally. If someone is sad or happy or laughing or whatever the case may be, they feel like they can feel that emotion. That's what I aim for
Yeah.
in my work in general, not just the wedding work, but in my work in general, is that you're getting real moments.
Yeah. I love that. It's as when you said that the thing you love about most is the relationships and getting to know the people. That's one of the things I love most about teaching workshops. It's getting to know the people, and then like once you get to know them, you have a better understanding of like who they are as a person, and then you can help them try to find photographs that kind of help bring out who they are through their photography, which is obviously
Right.
what you're doing in your wedding photography. You're connected to those emotional aspects of the human experience, and you bring it out through the photos.
Well, I think that it's for photographers, whatever you shoot, whatever it is, that you have to have a connection with what your subject is.
Yes.
Like you have to care about your subject. If you don't
Yes.
care, it's nobody's going to care about your photo. Like it's just, I'm going to put it real simply for you. Like if you have a passion for what you're photographing, that is going to amplify the image because you look at it with your eyes, the love that you have, or the care, or whatever you want to call it, that you have for that subject, whatever it is you're photographing, shows through in your images. Which is why I like technical photography. Like there's like you kind of, it feels kind of boring, but I know people who do it who love it, and like you can, and I look at their images. I have a friend who works for NASA, in like technical photography, and I look at he will send photos, and I'm like, this is beautiful. I'm like, but he really loves what he's doing. He loves
Yes.
he loves the nerdy part of it. He loves that aspect of like how these things are going together and what's going to happen with this. And while most of us would probably sit there and be like, this is like reading a manual, and not the most exciting stuff, he is really into it, and it shows in his photos. Like I look at his photos and I'm like, oh, this is like I am sucked in to this because you care so much about it, and it's like it's so powerful
Yeah.
for him. So
Yeah.
that's what my advice right there off the bat is photograph stuff that you have feelings about.
Yeah. No, I think it's amazing advice, and it sounds like you're like me, that when people don't do that, it kind of comes through. Like you can kind of tell that it's, they're not really that connected to the subject, or they're doing it for external reasons or whatever. And you have to first do it because you love it,
Yeah, I think that if you don't, I think the feeling is like a sterility. There's just not there's no life in that image for some reason, and like you said, like shooting for external reasons, and I like a lot of people I think shoot for internet validation. I don't know, like I see people
Yes.
who like on social media who just copy what other people do, and like because it's like, oh, that got 100,000 views, I'm just going to do the exact same thing. Well, and then they're mad when it only gets like 100 views, and they're like, why isn't anybody seeing this? Well, because you don't have the same connection to that subject that the
Right.
original person had, and algorithms are algorithms, and you just never know, and you have to have. It can be a difficult and sometimes solitary pursuit in photography. It can be, and if you let yourself go down that road of trying to imitate other people, it gets lonelier and lonelier because
Hmm.
you've. I know that when I started out as a photographer, I had no idea what I was doing. This is like the first few years of my like being a professional photographer. No idea how to run a business. As far as like style, I would just like, oh well, what do people want to pay me for? Like because I was still an actor, and this was the side job. and I wasn't like
Right.
totally dedicated to this. And this was just like, I'm doing this because I'm getting paid to do it, and I've got to figure out what people will pay me for. Like, so then I would look around and be like, okay, this is the style that people like. Great. And then I would say, like, if I was doing headshots for an actor, I'd be like, let's do a few shots on top of that where we're like being a little bit more playful and like get some like personality things. And people started using those, and they'd be like, this is the photo that I really like. And I'm like, I like that photo more too, but this is the standard headshot photo, like those sorts of things. But
Hmm.
so I was sort of like pushing away my natural inclination in some regards. And as far as weddings, I was just like, there were so many trends in weddings at that point in time, and I was just like, I'll do whatever people like. And I was trying to be like, I just want to get hired and I want to get paid, and it was not a good business model, and it was also not good mentally for me because I just started after a couple of years of doing that. I started going like, well, what am I actually bringing to this?
Yeah.
You know, where am I in these photos?
Right. Yeah, no, it's every time this subject comes up, I feel like there's a group of people listening who might be new to photography. They're like, well, I'm doing it the way I like it, and how dare they tell me I'm doing it the wrong way? And I'm like, no, 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 that's not the point. The point is, like, we've lived that experience, and there's another way that actually probably will be more enjoyable for you in the long term. That's more personally brings you more personal satisfaction, and the results are better, and you start to differentiate yourself, and it's like an overall just a better product. And that's like, I'm not I know you're not trying to tell people you're doing photography wrong, but every time people talk about this, that's what people like. A lot of people hear that, and I wish they didn't.
Absolutely not. What I'm saying is, if you go into it trying to be someone else instead of trying to be yourself, you are going to have more difficulties in the long term. There's a difference. There's a phrase that I heard a long time ago. It was like, imitate, emulate, or innovate. And you can, if you're imitating somebody, you're just trying to be like a carbon copy of them. You can emulate somebody else. There are plenty of people that I emulate. There are times when I just like, when I see photos like Vivian Mayer, like I just look at like her photos. She's a, I don't know if you're familiar, but like she was a street photographer, and nobody saw her work until like she was almost dead. Like she
Right.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
held on to everything, and then like a bunch of her undeveloped film got like bought at a like as her storage facility. She was, I think, in the last stages of her life, and she had not paid for the rent on it, and somebody bought it and like discovered all these images, and they're amazing. Like she was just like incredible. And I look at her photos, and I've been to like exhibitions, and you're just, they're looking at the stuff going like, she never saw the what came of all. Like most of these photos were never developed. She's
Right.
just shooting this stuff and like and never like getting the value, like the feedback of like, oh, this is how it came out. And you're like, how do you do this? And it's just, it's amazing. So like, there's part of me that wants to like, I see compositionally like things that she did, and I'm very like, I want to bring those things in because they speak to me. There are some of those things where I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring this into my personal work. It might not necessarily work for my business stuff. Sometimes it might, but like it's seeing other people, and I have lots of like people who inspire me photographically out there who are, you know, wonderful, wonderful photographers, and I look at their work and go like, oh, this is something that I want to. I see what they're doing there, and I want to put my twist on it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference in my mind between like incorporating other people's ideas into your own way of doing photography versus like carbon copy, like exact same photo, exact same composition, exact same light, exact, like everything's identical. It's super funny because in the landscape photography world, last year, there's a competition that a lot of people like to enter. It's called the International Landscape Photographer of the Year. And it was super, super funny because this guy, I think he was from Hong Kong or China, he entered a photo that was literally the exact same composition with the exact same sky and the exact same like editing style of someone who got second place in the competition like 3 or 4 years ago. And then that guy saw it and he was like, what the heck? Why are you guys rewarding this kind of work?
Right.
Why are you rewarding someone who literally copied every exact detail of my photograph? And it's, we could say a lot about like compositions need to do better, be better at judging, but also like the photographer themselves, like, come on, like have an original idea.
Yeah, there's something like if you're especially if you're submitting to a competition, I wouldn't want to like I did it better. I saw somebody posting on I don't know what social media platform it was. This was a couple weeks ago, and they had said something. It was like the Ansel Adams account had posted a photo, and this guy like commented like, "Oh yeah, I'd use a variable filter on the lower third of this."
I saw that.
Like, all these like things that he would do differently, and I'm like, "You're really like telling the ghost of Ansel Adams that you would do better?" And like, really? That's where you're going with this? Yeah, and it's a funny thing in a lot of genres of photography. There are people who will be like, "Well, what were your camera settings for that photo?" And I'm like, it's not going to matter if you have my camera settings. Like, let me tell you about why I chose to do what I did. And they're like, no, just give me the camera settings. Don't gatekeep. And I'm like, I'm not gatekeeping. I'm trying to tell you, I recently had a conversation with another photographer where he said, I teach process, not recipe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
yeah,
we need to talk about why we do certain things. Like, if you want to look at this photo and let's discuss, well, sure, I used this lens. Why did I use that lens? This is the look that I was going for,
right,
or whatever. And it's like, so that when you are out there in your own situation, you go, hey, what kind of look do I want to use here? I want to get out of this. Oh, well, if I use a telephoto lens, it's going to be more compressed. And, that gives me like a different look than if I'm using a 35 millimeter or something wider. Yeah. So that and how to deal with different lighting conditions, because you're not going to be in the exact same, time that I took my photo. You're not traveling back in time to the same place in taking a photo at the exact same moment that I am of the exact same thing, because the lighting conditions can change. Like, there's all sorts of different things, so you need to kind of learn your basics and but then when you ask someone about their image, I always think that you learn a lot more when you say, why did you make that decision?
exactly.
Why did you do that, instead of saying, oh, just tell me what you used?
Yeah, it's something that's really fun that comes up on every single workshop, I feel like, is you'll be photographing like waves or whatever you're out there doing, and inevitably someone will say like, tell me what your settings are. And it's like, I could do that and you could make the same photo I'm trying to make. But I think a better question to ask is like, what are some of the what apertures would you use to get this kind of effect, or like what shutter speed should I choose if I want to accomplish X, Y, and Z? And so like having that knowledge is going to make you a better photographer in the long run, as opposed to just like copying a recipe, like you put it.
Yeah, it's just like I saw there are videos of people doing car photos, like cars driving, and they're like shooting it like, oh, and then just like slapping down like, oh, I shot it at f10, 1/100th ISO, whatever. I'm like, well, there's no consideration of, were you outside? Were you like, was it cloudy? Was it sunny? Like, what's going on? And then all these people in the comments going, I used those settings and I didn't get photos that were nearly like that. And it's just like,
yes,
well, yeah, because like the settings don't translate into every possible situation.
right, yeah.
It's a roadblock, I think, that some people, it's holding you back to think that copying somebody else's settings is going to get you the photo that you want. Having that foundation of information, like knowledge about even just the exposure triangle, does so much for just to open you up.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite ways of thinking about it is I kind of already thought about it this way, but it was solidified when I read Galen Rowell's book, Mountain Light. And in that book, he talks about how when he approaches any scene, he's first deciding out of those three things in the exposure triangle, what's the one that's the most important for this particular scene, right? Like if it's a wide angle image and he wants everything sharp front to back, obviously the very first thing he's thinking about is aperture, right? And if it's a If it's a moving, like a deer running through the scene, obviously like shutter speed then becomes your most important variable. So I think that's like a really great way of thinking about it. Especially if you're like confused or you're not used to thinking in that way, I think it can be a really helpful mnemonic to just kind of get you into the right headspace.
I think it's also one of those things that when you like, I think that you have those two things that when you have your different modes, you have aperture mode and shutter mode and whatever. Like those things can help you learn. And I will often tell people like I still use aperture priority a lot when I'm in a situation where the light is going to change and I can't dial in every time like there's clouds that are like coming in and I'm going to have sun and then I'm going to have bright and it's whatever, but I want to keep one thing constant. That's my aperture. So that like there are times when I'm making adjustments on that. When I have more control over it, I'm shooting manually, but it's those things like that going back and looking at your images and looking at the settings you used and being like, okay, this is what the light was like. And I set my aperture to, 10 because I wanted more of a depth of field. And this is and then you look at the shutters and you go like, oh, okay, the shutter speeds were kind of in this area. You can learn from that and kind of like,
Yes.
that's how you start to like dial things in so that when you want to shoot manually, you're like, okay, I started shooting film again a lot more in the last couple of years and none of my film cameras have a working light meter on them, like internal light meter. I had this little thing from like TT Artisans that gives me like a I can dial in a little bit, but also like most of the time I'm like going, I've gotten to the point where I can know that okay, this is the general area that I need to be in, and I can then I can shoot. And then I was getting my film back and going like, okay, I actually was pretty close.
Yeah.
Sometimes where I was maybe on the edge and maybe a little darker or a little lighter than I wanted to be, but then it took a little while doing it, and I got myself back into being able to just look at the scene and go like, okay, for what I want to do and what aperture I want to be at, I can get myself into the zone pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. Well, just a quick break from the podcast to talk about something super awesome. If you've ever thought about turning your photography into a book, let me tell you, Printique is the real deal. I recently made a huge 200-page photo book with them, and the quality just blew me away. The print clarity, the sturdy binding, the richness of the paper, it all just feels like a work of art. If you're a wedding photographer, I think that this is an amazing product that you can provide to your clients. Just take a look for yourself. First of all, this thing is massive. It is substantial and it has presence. I mean, just look how thick this is, right? The quality is incredible. The process of creating the book, super easy. I could not be more impressed with the quality of this book, and I think you will too. I even recorded a full video showing the book up close so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. You'll find a link to that video in the show notes. Okay, let's get back to this week's conversation. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. I know that you'd mentioned before that you did some stand-up comedy and you did some acting, but you're also kind of a self-described introvert. I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit about how those experiences in acting and comedy have shaped the way that you've been able to connect with people during your photo shoots.
What I like to tell people is like the reason I call myself an introvert is because I feel a little guarded around people that I have just met. So it's hard for me to go into a social situation where I don't know anybody and be like, hey, how's it going? I'm not a great like schmoozer in a situation where I know no one. Like if I have somebody who like is a wing person who I know and I'm comfortable with, who can go up and introduce and whatever, I have forced myself to get better at it. And there are many times where I just get really super nervous about going up to somebody I don't know and trying to talk to them because they're like, who the hell is this person?
Right.
And I don't like to be rude to people or anything, but in my career as an actor, like the thing that you had a character. Deal with the people like, oh, you've performed on stage in front of thousands of people, and I'm like, yeah, I've got a character. I've got lines. Even when I was doing stand-up comedy, you have a routine. And for me, like the icebreaker of that routine, you have a few jokes that like are going to get people to laugh. And once they laugh, then I sort of loosen up. And I'm
Yes.
like, okay, let's go. Like now let's get into it. And now I can be a little bit more give and take with the audience. It's once I feel like we're in a comfortable place with each other. With clients, the thing that has helped me the most, there is again, knowledge beforehand. So I have clients fill out questionnaires and we talk and I get to know them. I get to know what they like. What are their favorite movies? What music do they listen to? What was the best meal they ate? Just those sorts of things that really like give me a sense of who they are that I can bring up in conversation because I love to make sure that people are super comfortable. Because again, another thing, I don't like having my photo taken. I get really part of it is self-conscious, and I think another part of it is I'm a photographer, so I'm also like thinking, what are they
Right.
doing? Why are they using that lens? So those sorts of things, like I want to make people feel really relaxed. So in the way that I do that is by like getting their mind off of having their picture taken, or like if I know their favorite movie, my wife will say I have an encyclopedic knowledge of useless things. And a lot of them are movie quotes, and so I'll just like throw out a line from their favorite movie and like make them laugh, and like it breaks the tension, and
Yeah.
and it also like I understand by reading those answers of like where was your first date, why, when did you know this person was the one, like is one of the questions I ask because it helps me understand their story so that I can bring that up. Like when I want a real emotional moment between two people, I'll be like, hey, think about that date or that time when you went on a kayak and you like both flipped over, but like they helped you back up onto the deck or the pier, and when you saw them coming out of the water like soaking wet, you knew that this was the person for you. Like that, I can bring that memory to the foreground to cause a real emotional connection between the two of them. That's real. It's authentic. It's not. They don't have to fake it.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying like kiss each other and look like you love one another, like hold hands, just like I don't know. It just feels like life goes out of people's eyes once you start using them like mannequins.
Mm.
And I think that that's what has helped me most is like I don't know. I guess I'm a pretty funny guy um, because I'm quick and I will like jokes. That's one thing I think that I learned from being a stand-up comic is that being able to respond really quickly to something somebody says, and like you can disarm a heckler in like 2 seconds, like come back with something. And like it's happened at weddings where I've had somebody who has had a few too many drinks and would say something like nasty to me while I'm trying to do pictures of the couple, and I would just fire back something that would like completely silence them and make everyone else laugh. And then just like the tension's broken again. Like these sorts of things to be able in those situations, knowing what disarms people, like it helps them put their guard down and be more open to being photographed. Those are those are the things. It's not a character as much as it was with acting. It is just the preparation.
Yeah.
Like learning your lines for a play. It is
Right.
like learning the things that they will react to.
Right. Right. That makes total sense. So earlier you had mentioned kind of this idea of kind of creating timeless images that pull out the emotion that's real and authentic. How do you define or recognize that quality in your work or in other people's work?
I think that what defines timeless to me is I can look at it and I don't immediately think that it's dated as far as the processing. There were so many trends in the wedding industry. Like there were, this is something I'm not as aware of in other industries. I know that there was like a steroidal like HDR phase in the early aughts where everybody in every genre was using like this like HDR.
Oh yeah,
And
triggering.
So like over the top, and I was like, I am not going to use this. And people were like, why aren't you using this? I'm like, because it looks weird. It doesn't look real, and like there is a place for that, but it was not in my stuff. And to me, it's not being a instantly recognizable. This was a fad, selective color, or vintage, quote unquote, vintage processing of images.
Slap it through Nick effects and
Yeah, and there's like there's this
Yeah.
whole thing, and for me, like, and I don't know, wedding photographers. There are like kind of two prevailing genres at the moment. I think that maybe we're kind of coming out of it right now. There's called like light and airy, which is very much like
Oh
highlights,
yes.
highlights, highlights, and then there's dark and moody, which is like more shadowy, but they've lifted the shadows, so it's almost like matted. And
Oh yeah.
people kind of get mad at me for saying this, but I'm like, those are just to cover up bad exposures, because it's just like, I underexposed for dark and moody, because and I'm just lifting the shadows until you can actually see what's in the image, or I blew out everything and I'm just now it's light and airy.
Yeah. I mean, it's useful for like making a fairly bad composition, at least of a decent image.
I think that the thing that people gravitate towards in my work, and why I aim for a timeless look, is that they can look back on it. Now I've been doing this for a quarter of a century, and some of my first clients, when I really was putting an effort into, okay, we're not doing the trendy editing and stuff like that, those people are still like have their wedding photo up as
Right.
their like
Hey,
profile pictures and stuff, and you're just like, because it doesn't look like, oh, that was so whatever year. And the other thing that I think makes it timeless is the emotional content. And one thing I'll say is emotional content trumps technical perfection.
100%.
I
Yeah.
think that like when you have like, if you go into a museum, look at a piece of art, whether it's a photo or a painting or whatever it is, when you have a reaction to it, you have an emotional feeling about it. People who are buying pictures of themselves, or paying you to photograph their event, or if they're trying to buy a landscape photo, there is some sort of, they buy because of emotion. And the more emotionally connected, like what I was saying earlier, the thing with like landscapes, I think, is if you care about what you are photographing, it comes through somehow in that image. There is an emotional weight there, and it's how you see that vista or whatever it is that people are then like attracted to, that they get into it and they're like, oh, it's the way that you see the world. They identify with that. It feels like comfortable to them. For weddings, I find that people like, they they love these images because the emotion of it, whatever the emotion was, happy, sad, whatever the case may be, it is so prevalent in that image that it brings it back to them, even if they weren't, even if it's a photo not of them. And there are so
Hmm.
many times that I've had clients come back to me and say, this photo that you took of my aunt talking to, you know, my spouse's parent, like having this conversation, and I can really see like both of their personalities in it. And we weren't there for this moment. We didn't know that they actually got to meet, but they have like a similar background or whatever. And they're so emotionally into it because that photo is taken with the care of, like, I'm not trying to get like, hey, let's pose and let's do a jumping shot, ladies. And instead I'm like looking for, this is, where is the, how do I frame this, and what is the exact moment where we are really seeing their personalities.
Yeah, which requires you to pay attention, right? And be observant and be in tune with those emotional things that may or may not be occurring. And I'm guessing that you probably have a similar approach to composition in that once you identify that thing, whether it be a emotional moment or whatever, then your thought process probably goes to like, how do I reduce it down to that core element, remove as much distracting things from the frame that are not going to aid in that telling that story, which
Right.
is what I do in landscapes all the time. Like, I'm like, okay, what's this really about? And how can I distill it down and eliminate things that aren't going to help bring that forward? And I'm guessing like in wedding photography, that's a very useful approach as well.
Yeah, getting rid of distraction is a huge thing. There are some times when you want to see all of the stuff, like everything that's going on.
Sure.
Sometimes there's big dances and everything's going crazy, and you're like, just, you kind of want to be overwhelmed by it all, because it's an overwhelming moment of just like energy and joy
Yeah.
and whatever. But there are other times, there are a few shots that I have taken that, there's one of bride and her mother, and like the sun is coming through the the window, and they're behind a curtain because there was like it's an Asian wedding ceremony, and they do a thing called like door games, where for the groom and the groomsmen to enter, they have to not compete, but they have to perform certain activities, and like you need to run outside and find a like a teddy bear and bring it back, or you got to do like 50 push-ups or something like. There's these things, and it's like in that moment, the bride is sitting with her mother, and there is chaos going on behind the curtain. Like it's just super loud and everything else. But this moment of anticipation with the bride and her mom, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop down on this because I really just want to see the light. I don't want to see any of the other stuff in the room. There's just some light on the wall, and it's falling on them really nicely, and you can kind of see the curtain in the background. But like this is just this moment of quiet anticipation with the two of them. And that's one of the photos that I look at and I'm like, this is where I really nailed it. Like this is like something that it's everyone who is there is like who's on the other side of the curtain is just like blown away by it because they knew how crazy everything else that was going on was. And for the bride and her mom, that's a really special emotional moment. And it's just so quiet visually. Like,
Right.
it got rid of everything else.
Right.
I like bringing it down, stopping it down so that there's not like we're just getting this one shaft of light that's falling on the two of them, and we're not picking up any of the like furniture in the background or anything else. It's just the two of them sitting next to one another.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because I feel like there's a lot of people that like, oh, you have a good eye, and they assume it's not something that you can learn. And obviously, you might have like a natural predilection towards that sort of a framing, but I feel like a lot of this stuff can be learned with intention and with paying attention, and also like getting feedback on your work from other people. It just drives me crazy when people are like, oh, I don't have that in me or whatever. It's like, no, you can learn this stuff. You need to have that concept in your mind and take steps to actually improve it. And getting feedback, I think, is probably one of the most important ways to do that.
Something you said, intention, I think is one of the biggest things because it goes back to what we were saying about like just imitating people for the purpose of getting,
Likes.
likes and shares on, whatever social media platform. And that's your intention instead of like trying to take a photo that, really matters. And like, you want to be consistent. And if you want to have that consistency over time and also to be more in control of your craft, whatever, even if it's a hobby. Like, do you want to be in control of it? Do you want to be the person who decides what you're making the photo, or are you just photocopying somebody else's work? And that sort of thing, like you're saying, getting feedback. The internet can be a cruel place at times,
Yes.
and I think there are a lot of people out there who really want you to succeed, and it's finding the community. Like you have to do some digging, and like if you just post it, wherever, like there are like hashtags or whatever like topics on threads that I have found are generally like there are people who are very, for the most part, constructive, and there are other there are groups out there. You find them. You got to find the place that is it's good for you. It depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for something local, or if you're just looking for a group of people. But finding those people who will give you construction criticism because they want you to get better. They want you to grow. I think that's one of the things that can be very hard. There were times definitely in my career where it was hard for me to hear things because I was taking it personally.
Yeah.
Thinking that people were just saying they didn't like my work, and that wasn't the case. They wanted me to take the step up.
Right.
And when I realized that, and I was like, oh, they weren't telling me to shoot like them. They weren't telling me to to stop the direction I was heading in, but they were saying like, what you might want to do is try these three things and see if one of them clicks for you. They were just trying to like get me to the place where I needed to be.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that. And I think that there's a lot of struggle with like, people they're not being instructive. I see a lot of people just posting in online forums going like, no constructive criticism. I don't need your feedback. And I'm like, then why are you posting this in this forum of photographers? You just want to show off. You just want to try to get some sort of likes, and like people would say like, oh hey, like, and somebody would say like, this is great. If you were trying to go for this, you may try blah 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 editing, like giving like burning it a little bit over here so it's not so bright, and we have more focus on whatever. And they'd just be like, I don't want any feedback, no feedback.
Yeah.
I'm happy with the way it is. Okay, like
Yeah,
people
there's like a
saying,
trend. There's a trend on Threads right now where people are posting like the raw and my edit kind of a
Yeah.
deal, and it's like always like, whoa, you just dropped a nuclear missile on your photograph, and of course the comments are like, wow, the comments are usually like one of two things, like, oh my god, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen, which is like, no, it's not, you're just lying. Or it's like, dude, what are you doing to your photograph? And then of course the people are like, oh, it's a masterpiece. And I'm just like, dude.
Yeah.
And of course they have like 10,000 likes and all these comments. And
Yeah, there's a guy that
this stuff is hideous. What are you doing?
There's a guy who's doing like hideous edits on purpose.
Oh, I like that.
He's like, here's the original straight out of the camera, and here's my edit, and it's just like completely like blown out, like it literally looks like radiated, like it'll be like hot red and pink and whatever, and just looks awful. And people are like, "Are you okay, man? Is everything all right?" And he's like, and it's like it's a joke. It's definitely a joke, because he's like, if you look at his work, that is not at all his editing style.
Right.
I think that it encourages people to go and look at your feed and like actually see it, because when you look at the stuff that he actually posts, it's not at all his editing style. So he's just like bucking that trend.
Yeah, and like obviously, if someone is posting, here's my raw and here's my edit, and the edit is like super wild and out there, of course they're doing it for attention.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, and like again, go and check out. I have spent more time looking at people's feeds to see like what they actually put out there. And when there is no consistency in what they produce, like if you have no vision, I mean, I think that one of the things, I do a lot of different types of photography. I do events, I do portraits, I do, like weddings. Weddings and events, it's a very similar thing. Weddings are a different, it's like there's a lot more that goes into a wedding than just any other event. But there is a style to my photos. Like I said, like this timeless style, it's emotional, is very much about different moments. Even in a corporate event, I'm looking for the moments. If somebody's giving a keynote speech, how am I framing this? What does the client want these photos for? There's a lot of those things that go into it, and it's intentional, like choosing that we are going to make this about, like, this is my style. This is a very, in my, timeless, but modern in a way, but it also has a very real feeling to it.
Yeah.
I don't edit. I don't do crazy color edits. I like to add what is called my special sauce. It's like bumping the colors a little bit, so it's a little, you're getting a little more vibrant than you're usually going to see with your, like, right out of the camera. But other than that, it's not a lot of like crazy editing to it.
I mean, I personally try to aim for kind of like this aesthetic where I don't want people to notice that it's been edited. Like I want it to feel like I've transported you to this experience that I had that was really special. And if it feels obvious that I did something to it, then I feel like I've missed the mark. But I want to go back to something you said about getting feedback. In nature landscape, we have a forum called Nature Photographers Network. It's like $50 a year, and you can get critiques on your images. It's a really good place because it's a nice, vibrant community. Does the wedding portrait community have something similar to that?
There's, I guess, like WPPI, which is Wedding and Portrait Photographers International, and they have a yearly thing where you go and like do a portfolio review.
Okay.
There's also Wedding Photo Journalists Association, which I'm a member of, that you can submit photos. Like they do like a contest. It has to be like that you took it that year. Like you can't like take stuff from like years back, whatever. The one thing that it doesn't do, it doesn't give you a lot of feedback. Like they will like choose like winners and honorable mentions and whatever, but they don't give a lot of. They used to give more feedback on each photo, like ones that they awarded, they would give feedback on, not necessarily all of the thousands that people submitted.
Yeah, it's hard.
There are other things, even for like corporate photographers and things. There's an organization called the American Society of Media Photographers, ASMP, that has like regular like local chapters that you can go and do a portfolio review with like your local chapter. Highly recommend like finding a group of some kind, whether it's even if it's just like 5 or 6 photographers that that you like respect and that are going to tell you the truth.
Yes.
Like this is the thing. Like they're not just blowing smoke.
Oh yeah.
Like if you can trust them to tell you the truth, because one of the best things for me in my career has been having a solid set of photographer friends who will be like, dude, that sucks.
Yes.
Like,
it's important.
It's not a great photo. Why are you posting that photo? And I'll be like, what? And I look at it and go like, oh yeah. Like no, you can, like, if you recrop that, it might be okay. But like, are you sure you want to have that out there? And they're like, oh yeah, thank you. Like,
yeah, and I mean, even for people who have been doing it for 25, 30 years, like you miss stuff, right? Or like, I don't know, I have blinders on sometimes when I'm looking at my own stuff. I'm like, I think that looks great. And then someone else will see it and they'll be like, bro, like, what about these? What about that? How come you didn't do this? Why didn't you crop? There's always going to be different approaches and opinions on the image. And of course, some of the things, like if you blew the highlights on accident and they're not recoverable, like, sorry, you can't really do much to fix that. But, it's always good to have a group of people that you can send stuff off to, especially if you're like on the fence about something. Like, is this good, not good?
That's the thing. Like that's the one. Like, and I always tell people when they're putting together their portfolio, again, whatever genre that you shoot, you're putting a portfolio out there. You've got your website. Like, you have to be more critical of your portfolio than you think you need to be, and not in a bad way, but like really think about like, oh, what am I putting out there? And if it's if it's people are trying to buy your artwork, if they're trying to buy your landscape photos, or you're looking to have people hire you to go shoot for a magazine, or if you're looking for people to hire you to do events or whatever, like family portraits, whatever the case may be, you have to think about the photos that are going that how they're going to be seen by that other person, not by you.
Right.
That is a little bit of a disconnect that you have to do, like from yourself, and like look at it through their eyes. That is one of the biggest hurdles that I leapt over that helped my business do way better. Because once I realized that, I was like, oh yeah, I've got to put photos out there that people see themselves in, and not just the ones that that are my darlings. That I love this photo, and I've got to keep this photo on my website because like I love that photo. And then I I looked at it from the eyes of someone who's going to be hiring me and going, there are 3 of basically the same photo on my website. As much as I love them, I only need 1 of those.
Yes, that's so hard.
Yeah, and it's just like, like we just need 1, and choose what you feel is the best one, or rotate them around. Who knows? We'll rotate it between the 3. But yeah, like that sort of like being critical enough of yourself, and not in a bad way. I find that I tend to be very self-critical of my work. I hold myself to a really high standard, and that's one of the things when it comes to like my own like landscape and nature photos. I've got like photos of eagles and other birds and flowers. I love doing macro shots. I have a whole garden of flowers that I, like every year I'm shooting my flowers whenever I go, and when we travel, I'm shooting landscapes and other things. And I tend to be like critical. I've done for years, never showed any of this stuff. It was just for me, and I just had it. Then I can't remember what the switch was. What went off? I think it was somebody who said like, oh, you should. Like, they saw one of my photos and were like, this is really good. And I was like, you think so? I think it was a flower photo, and I just like spent a night, like I poured myself a scotch, and like sat down and like was going through some of these photos. I'm like, yeah, some of these are really good. Yeah, like there's some of these photos are actually really quite good, and I was like, okay, I'm going to put together a print shop of some of my favorites, and we'll see if anybody, wants to buy them. But that was a moment of like being more kind to myself and like looking back and being critical of things. But I still had to do the same thing. I have these photos that had like 7 shots of the same flower, and I'm like, okay, I'm not putting all of these into the print shop because they're all pretty similar. And I'm like, yeah, but I really like this, and like getting rid of like I don't know, the sort of my love for them, my personal attachment to them, and like saying, okay, no, this is going to be the one I'm going to put out here.
It's so hard, man, because like probably once a year I'll do the same thing. I'll pour myself a beer or something and like just go through my website and try to figure out which photos I want to get rid of, like to make room for new stuff for the next year or whatever. And I swear to God, man, every time I do it, like someone will buy a print of the ones that I'm about to get rid of, and you're just like, I thought that was the worst photo, and now you're telling me I should keep it because you bought it,
Right.
which is a good problem to have. But at the same time, for me, it just underscores this idea that like you might think you know what people are into, but it's so hard.
Yeah, it's really difficult. Like what I was saying there is like I was looking at 5 very similar photos and being like,
Sure.
you got to choose one of those, and they can't put all 5 out there.
To be fair though, like this last fall, I spent, I don't know, like I want to say it was like 14 days I was in the field consecutive, and so I have a lot of autumn color photos, which is kind of one of my favorite things to do. And of course, like even within there, I think I whittled down my entire catalog for that entire outing down to like 150 photos or something crazy. And then I was able to get it down to like 110. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to put all 110 in a gallery, partially because I want people to see like you can come home with a lot of really good images. And yes, there might be some replication or duplication of concepts or ideas in there. But part of me was like, I'm proud of this stuff, even though there's like similarities and overlap. I think it's good. So, and maybe there's this one right here that someone is attracted and attached to more than this one over here that are similar. And I'm like, you know what? I'll let everyone else decide.
I'll let them decide. Yeah. I mean, there are certainly like times where I've let that go, but there are times where I'm looking at them like these 5 images are exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay,
there's
that's
like
fair.
slight composition differences. And I'm like, oh, but this one's right weighted, this one's left weighted.
Yes.
Like it's all the same picture pretty much, and I'm like, but I love them all. So like it's trying to find that balance between like, oh, I love this photo. What reason am I putting it out there? Am I just putting it out there for me, or am I looking to like people to buy this, or am I looking for people to hire me to do
Yes.
something, or to do, like what am I putting it out there for? Is it an illustration of like the concept of what I can do for you, or is it like this is my art, and if you want to connect with it, that's fine. Those are 2 very different things.
Very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And how you curate that stuff is completely different. How you present it to the world is completely different. And it's important, like I think we've been saying this whole time, like having the intention and the knowledge that those approaches are going to be different. That's what's important.
Yeah, and just knowing, like again, intentionality, like not just throwing things out there. Like when I talk to younger photographers, or I'll say even older photographers who have been doing it for a while, and they're like, I need some thoughts on my online portfolio. The first thing I go in and do is like look for duplicates. Like, what do you like, okay? This
Don't go to
photo's-
my website, dude.
No, I mean it's like we're talking about like okay, for example, let's go back to weddings. Like if you can go to a landscape and be like take like a different day, the light's different. Like
Totally.
there are different things. You can be in the exact same spot, light's completely different, the sky's different.
For sure.
All things are going on can be completely like, and there's something to be said for like looking at things like from like in different times, so the looks different, whatever. I'm talking about like things where you're talking about portraits, and I'm like, okay, you've got 5 portraits of people in the same location,
In the same pose.
pretty much the same pose, like
Right. Same light.
yeah, just one of those.
Yeah. Or maybe
like,
one should be black and white or something.
yeah,
But yeah.
maybe crop one in a little bit and make that black and white, make it a little bit different. And I think that it's sometimes, and like I fell victim to this probably the first 10 years of my career, was the feeling of like I have to show everything.
Yes.
I feel this feeling of like I have to show them all the things that I'm doing, even if it's very similar to something else I already did. I felt like I was somehow trying to validate myself, my own
Yes.
existence, like to
I
all of
still struggle with that, but
it's
yeah.
hard. It's hard, and it's like instead of going like, you know what, I want to show you like if it's my wedding work, I want to show you something from this wedding that may be similar to something you saw somewhere else, but in the same sense, it's completely different because it's different people, it's different details, whatever the reason is. And I'm like, that's how I will focus it differently for what I'm presenting. One of the things I do, I started like learning to balance the rings, like the engagement ring
Oh,
between like the
yes.
shoes. So just like, and I was like, as I had seen a couple of photos, I was like, you know what, I'm going to put my spin on this, whatever. And I would do this, and I'd balance them, and I'd take it from different angles, and every time the shoes are different, the ring's different, so it's a different photo. And I'd take it from like above and from the sides and from different angles. And I've been doing it for about 5 years. And one of my second photographers came up to me and was like, "Are you not using putty?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Most people who do that, they're using like a little bit of putty to like get it to stick." And I'm like, "No, I've just learned to like friction balance like this ring in between stuff." And they're like, "That's intense." And I'm like, "Wait, what do you mean other people are using like putty to like get it to stick?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, I didn't know that. Uh,
You're like, I feel stupid.
I was unaware. And they're like, "Dude, you're really good at balancing stuff." And I'm like, "Okay." So now I don't do it. I don't use putty. I just like I can do it very quickly. But there's like if I post a different like what I've got one of my ring shots, I keep it very limited in my portfolio. But and when I blog things, I will usually include if I really like the ring shot, I will include it because it is still completely different from another shot because, like I said, all of the elements into it are unique. Whereas like
Right.
the technique may be the same, but the elements
Right.
in it are different. And the light quality of light, like sometimes you get like different things, and sometimes like it took one of like a ring, and the shoes were like all this gold flake. It was like super super like putting off like this all this gold bokeh, like feel like because I was shooting
Oh
it
yeah,
very
cool.
shallow. It was crazy. And I'm like, this is great. And then like you go and do one where like it's very subdued colors, and you're like, oh, this is like this completely different feel to it, but it's the same technique. So
Right. Well,
in that,
and you can play around with like, oh, it's gold. How can I maybe pair those gold shoes with something that's blue? And then you have this nice color combination or whatever. So,
yeah, there's like all these like, there's all sorts of different things you can do with it for the colors, like the depth of field, the
right.
like quality of the light. There's a ton of different things. Even though you're using the same technique, it becomes a validly different photo, even though it's similar in style.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so there's something to be said for that. But there's also like if you're doing the same shot of, okay, I've taken 20 shots of this mountain with like a clear blue sky, and like at 5 o'clock on June 5th, you know they've got from different years, but like the sky, the sun's in the same spot, the sky looks exactly the same. I'm using the exact same settings every time. Like it doesn't necessarily look a whole lot different, I'm guessing,
Although it
unless
could be kind of a cool project to see like how the whole scene is transformed
it
over
is.
time. But
I started thinking about it as I was saying them. I'm going, oh, but you might lose trees. You might
yeah, it could be
like there's all
interesting.
sorts of things that could change.
Right. Then you throw it into a time lapse video. I mean, it could be kind of cool. I don't know.
You ever see the movie Smoke with Harvey Keitel?
No.
It's an older movie, and he runs a smoke shop like tobacconist,
Oh,
but he has a camera, and he goes outside every day, and it's like an old Rolleiflex or something. Like he goes outside and takes a photo at 9:20 a.m. every day from the corner in front of his shop, and he has like all these books just every day, like every day at the exact same time.
yeah.
And he talks. It's like there's another character who's lost his wife. Like his wife died, and he comes to him and says, like, "Yeah, I just wanted to show you this photo from the day that she died. Like, she was in the photo because he was like, it becomes this like thing because it is like a time lapse of like years. He's just got like
That's
stacks and stacks of books. He's just been
that's super cool.
yeah. It's like that sort of yes. Over time, like those sorts of things can become something that shows difference. I came back at myself with my advice. Yeah, like I was like, no, I'm trying to say something, but you know what? I was incorrect. I'm gonna
No,
fall on my sword there.
no, that's all good. Okay, so I have a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
I understand that you also have a podcast,
Yes.
the
Yes.
Nerdy Photographer. Tell us a little bit about it. Why did you start it?
I started the Nerdy Photographer podcast. I had started the website for the Nerdy Photographer because I am a nerdy photographer. I like to like kind of geek out on stuff, and it's like like building. Oh, I'm going to do a DIY project, or I'm going to do this sort of thing, and a lot of it was to like kind of give people the information that I didn't have when I was starting out as a photographer, and trying to be, and it's not necessarily a community. It has become more of that now. But like to be there and like here's like hey, I'm your fun uncle who's going to give you like some advice on how to run a photography business and be a better photographer, and like that's what my original aim was. And then I started the podcast, and I think at the beginning I really wasn't sure. I was trying to find my footing, and then I figured out that it was again like I wanted to have people on who were experts at certain things, like especially about running a business
Mm,
and like what you can like giving you some advice, but in a conversational and like fun way, like coming up with different analogies that were fun, sticking to the nerdy theme, but also just like getting the thought process behind people as opposed to again instead of teaching the recipe, talking to these. And I've had the luxury of talking to some pretty famous photographers and people whose work I really admire, and just talking to them about what is it that you do, like what do you think about when you're taking like this picture, what's your thought process, what goes into this, what's the planning behind it, and
right.
just listening there into the conversations and just being like, and I feel like I'm trying not to fanboy a lot of times where I'm just like that's really cool, like that's really but it's so interesting because I've talked to an incredibly diverse group of people in genre and like backgrounds, like all sorts of different backgrounds, and to hear like how people think about it, like it really is. You are the unique thing
Hmm.
about your photography. You really are like the secret ingredient, and like listening to other people like talk about their processes and going like each person has their own everything, like all of
Yes.
your all of your history and everything goes into that image that you capture,
Right.
and if you put it there, if you can find those things and you put it there. So yeah, the nerdy photographer was that's the it is entertain and inform and just have a good conversation. Sometimes we'll talk about things like why there's so many characters in Hallmark movies that are photographers. That's a whole other conversation that we have. So sometimes we just do stuff that's just like off the wall.
Nice.
Yeah, a
And
lot of it.
is it weekly, bi-weekly? How often do you?
It's bi-weekly. It has been for a while. I think I'm going to start doing it. It might get weekly in that I'm going to alternate interview episodes with like short, like
Yep.
little, I call them nerdlets. But they're just like little things that like, hey, think about this the next time you're out taking a picture, like just like a little, like a short advice piece, because it's hard for me to like run a business, and I'm sure running a
Dude,
podcast as
it's
well,
rough.
interviewing people, scheduling all the interviews, and editing everything. It takes a lot of time. So yeah, if I can have like a 5 minute like little thing where I'm just giving people advice on if it's a business thing or shooting thing, it might get more weekly content for a little while.
Yeah, I thought about doing something kind of like that, but I was like, I'm having a hard time staying on top of weekly. So
Weekly is tough. Weekly, I was doing weekly during the pandemic, and then I like work started coming back, and I was like, oh, yeah, like I can't
yeah,
do
it's
work and do this on a weekly basis and promote it and
oh yeah,
do
it's
all the things. Yeah, and I
yeah,
also
and
started opening up the Nerdy Photographer like YouTube a little bit to
oh
get more into like
God, don't even
it's
get me
tough.
started with YouTube.
I have been like, okay, I'm an idea person. Like I have ideas, and I like have a big notebook full of ideas. And I was like, you know what? I go on like, here's things that I can take stuff that I've already done, and that people might find interesting to like. I can put together a story about this in a couple
Right.
of hours, and we can create something interesting for people to watch if they're interested in that. And then if not, then they don't watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Awesome.
we're on all of the podcast platforms. Nerdy
It's
Photography.
awesome. All right. Well, my last question is, who do you recommend for the podcast? Who are some people that our listeners need to learn more about?
We've been talking about community a lot. I would highly recommend Dimitry Mack, who is a New York. He does a lot of street photography, but mostly he's a concert photographer. But he started the Photographers of Threads originally, and then that kind of got out of control, and he moved over to Photographers United on Threads. And he's great about like supporting other photographers, like finding your community of photographers, and who you should talk to. Highly recommend Dimitri.
I thought I recognized his name. It's because I've engaged with him on Threads quite a bit. Yeah.
Dim Mac. We used to make fun of him because that's if you ever see the movie Bloodsport, like show us the Dim Mac, and it's the death touch, and I was like, oh, so you're he's like Dim Mac photography, and I'm like, oh, that's hard, man, like death touch photography. He goes, no, it's my name, and I was like, oh, okay, that's different. And he switched it back because that was his screen name was Dim Mac Photography. And I was like, oh, and they switched it to Dimitri Mac. I don't know if it had anything to do with our conversation, but who knows. But yeah, then I would recommend Phil Penman. I don't know if you've ever heard of Phil Penman. He's a street photographer extraordinaire, like a guy. Man, like listening to him talk about like preparation for shoots and like his field notes. Everything just like gave me a whole different outlook on preparing for a shoot. Like, I mean, I thought I was like someone who prepared a lot, and he just sort of like melted my mind with like, because we were talking about stuff from like, because he lives in New York, and I would talk to him about, this shot is up here. Like, oh, when do you, like, how do you make this like a daily practice of stuff? Like, how do you go out there? And he'll talk a lot about, how he just has like a book of like, these are the locations that I go to in these conditions. Because I know there's going to be good conditions, like what I like in like at this intersection or at this overpass. Like these are the places, and he kind of like has a group of those for this condition, like what part of the city he's going into. And he has them from multiple cities.
That's cool.
Like, because he travels to Paris and he's in Tokyo and whatever, but he like has books for everything and just writing those down. So he's very interesting to talk to. And another guy I would recommend is Johnny Edward, also known as Johnny Creative. He like talking about creativity, like that our conversation that we had like really it reset me. In a lot of ways, like it is one of the best conversations I've ever had. Highly recommend talking to Johnny.
Awesome. Well, Casey, this has been a blast.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, and some really good stuff in there. And just thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me for a chat.
Oh, you're very welcome, man. I'd love to talk anytime.
Awesome. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Casey Fatchett and his thoughtful reflections on timeless imagery, authenticity, and carving out a creative voice that truly resonates. If you want to hear more from Casey, we recorded a special bonus episode over on Patreon where we dive into his deeply personal film photography project, documenting hikes with his dog, Shadow, using expired film. It's a beautiful conversation about memory, process, and the emotional power of photography. You can unlock that episode and many, many more by supporting the podcast on Patreon. And don't forget to check out my full video review of the massive Printique photo book that I recently created. There's a link to that in the show notes. Lastly, time is running out to support my new book on Kickstarter. It's a project that brings together 25 essays and over 140 photographs from my 500-mile journey across Colorado and my journey of climbing the highest 100 mountains. You can grab a copy, a print, and lots more. Just head over to the Kickstarter page before October 5th to be a part of it. Thanks for stopping in, collaborating with us, and listening. See you next week.